It's just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Dr. Todd Bovenizer. He's a board certified orthodontist and the founder of Bovenizer and Baker Orthodontics. He graduated from Virginia Tech with his bachelor's in biology from West Virginia and his master's in orthodontics and doctor of dental surgery. Dr. Bo is past president of the North Carolina Association of Orthodontists and member of the American Association of Orthodontists and Southern Association of Orthodontists. He is part of Damon's mentor program. This allows orthodontists from the Southeast to visit the office and shadow Dr. Bo to learn about state-of-the-art technology and techniques regarding the Damon system. He speaks nationally for Ormco. Dr. Bo lives in Cary, North Carolina with his wife Megan and their three wonderful girls. Dr. Bo can be found cheering on his kids at the soccer field. He is also heavily involved in their school, Cary Christian, where he serves as president on their board, and his church, Colonial Baptist. He can be found running his kids around, playing tennis, and traveling to the coast. Dr. Bo also loves Bitmojis, the Carolina Hurricanes hockey team, Dave Matthews, his Big Ring, Egg Charcoal Grill, and Chipotle. Now, how could an orthodontist support hockey? That seems like a moral conflict.
Well, we're completely bandwagoners. My three daughters have taken a liking to it this year, and it's been kind of funny, Howard. Every week there's a couple games here in town, and they're begging me all the time. We're a soccer family, and two of them play field hockey. So I don't know if it's just taking the ice to the field, but it's a wonderful family thing for us. All five of us go, and we really just enjoy it. We get in the car. Our phones are not with us. We've got one purpose: to get to the game. We sit together. We eat popcorn. And it's like my wife and I said, we had no idea that this was going to take off, but it's kind of like a family thing we do. So it's been relatively new, and we're kind of riding the Canes' success this year. We haven't been two playoff contenders since 06, 07. We won the cup in 06. I was at the games then, and then it kind of just died off here in North Carolina as far as the playoff. But now we're contenders to make the playoffs this year, so we're excited about it.
Wow, that is so cool. I was thinking having you on the show today that the ADA just started their 10th profession with anesthesiology. When you and I got out of school, it was only 9, and orthodontics is it seemed to be steady Eddie all when I graduated, all throughout the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. But man, things are changing fast in the ortho space. What do you think of all the changes going on? I mean, Smiles Direct Club is going to do an IPO, Invisalign. What do you think about all these changes? It's got to be making an orthodontist have a more competitive market with more challenges. And how is this affecting you? And what are your macroeconomic thoughts from 30,000 feet?
I couldn't agree with you more. It's changing rapidly. I've been in private practice for 13 years, so I set up my office when I was a resident at West Virginia. So I graduated in April, and I started building the practice that I'm in December of 2005. So I was actually doing construction while I was a resident. I was coming down. I moved my wife to Cary, and because my family was here, and I was coming down, meeting with the contractors, meeting with the architects, and opened up in 06, and none of this stuff was around. I mean, Invisalign was around, obviously, but they were still making many changes to that. There were so many changes to Invisalign. It still wasn't where it is today. I mean, they put so much R&D into that. And it's like I told my partner, I've only been doing it for 13 years, and he's been with me for 4. And the profession has changed so much in the 13 years. It's like I tell him, it's hard to imagine where we're going to be in 10 years from now. Like he's seeing it because he's only been in it for 4 years. So he's seeing everything around. And I'm like, listen, man, 13 years ago, we didn't have any of this stuff. The iPhone had just come out, iPhone Gen 1. We had just started texting when I was, in my first year of private practice. It was still phone calls. Texting didn't even exist. And look where we are with texting. Most people don't even take voicemails anymore. They say, hey, if you need to get me, leave me a text. People just don't want to be on the phone. And orthodontics is just, wow, it is changing so rapidly. I can't even get my head around it. Howard, not only Smile Direct Club, Invisalign, all these direct to consumers, but look what we're doing online. I mean, look what you and I are doing right now. I mean, the consumer has so much at their fingertips, and the orthodontist and the dental profession has so much at their fingertips every day with podcasts and Facebook groups and closed Facebook groups. I mean, it's almost like you can learn so much information as an orthodontist or a dentist or an endodontist just from being online with these different groups. It's exciting, but I tell people you better embrace the change. And if you're not looking at it through the front of your windshield, you need to be looking at it from the rearview mirror. You need to be ahead of it, because if you're trying to chase this stuff, it's going to leave people behind.
So what do you think of what do you think of this direct to consumer ortho movement? What are your thoughts on Smiles Direct Club, and are you going to participate in their IPO?
I don't think so. I just kind of do the passive investing. I'm a Vanguarder. So, IPOs and all that, I read the paper, and Lyft just had their IPO, and it's getting a lot of stir. But, what I would say about the direct to consumer, whether it be Smile Direct Club, and, you've got all these other companies, Ormco's coming up with Spark, 3M has their own aligner. What they're doing is the strategy is to go broad, in my opinion. So they're going really broad with this, and they're trying to gather up as many people as they can from a horizontal standpoint, and they just want to reach as many people as they can. And then once they do that, they will then go vertically. So I think what we're seeing now is just the beginning phases of it. And what it's doing for people like me is it's getting more people aware of orthodontics. And I like that. So people are aware of orthodontics, and they come in my office and they've heard of Smile Direct Club. They've heard of 6 month smiles. I mean, 6 month smiles have been going on for, 7 or 8 years. And that's been in our area. I mean, obviously our area is right next to Research Triangle Park. And, people are a little bit more ahead of the technology curve. So 6 month smiles, I mean, we've dealt with that wave, it seems like, years ago. And now we're dealing with the Smile Direct Club wave and, the Invisalign wave. But it is getting people more in tune to orthodontics and orthodontists and just treatment options. And, I like when people come in educated, and I like to educate them further on, what can I do? What can you expect from treatment in our office versus treatment on your own?
So so it looks like a lot of these patents have come off on the clear aligners, and now you start, there's got to be, if you Google it around the world, there's probably 20 companies that are getting involved in the clear aligner space. You just mentioned 3M's aligner. Are there really substitutes to Invisalign, or is Invisalign such a high quality with the materials and the plastics? Or do you think there really are clear competitive substitutes in the marketplace for clear aligner therapy if you're an Invisalign fan?
I don't know the answer totally to that. All we use here is Invisalign, and we have a 3D printer. So we have our own software, 3Shape, that we use. It's not our own software, but we use 3Shape. And let's say I deband a patient this morning, and number 23 was just set in a little lingually. And I look at the assistant and I say, hey, I want to move number 23 mesially out. So she makes a note in our EasyRx software. Then our lab technician comes and gets the doctor and says, hey, you have a reset on patient X. We go in the lab. We move number 23. We click on number 23. We can move number 23 however we want. Then we can 3D print that patient's model and move it with our own clear aligners. Now, that is very tough. And there's some people in the space that do a lot of their own 3D printing in the office. What Dr. Baker and I do, we do at most 1 to 3 aligners. So if we can't capture the movement in 3 retainers, it's just not predictable enough for us. So then we tell that patient, hey, your treatment is way too substantial for what we can handle in our lab with our own clear aligners. You need to go to Invisalign, and, because it's tried and true. And, Invisalign, I remember I did it on my mother back in, it seems like it was 2001, 2002. I mean, that was 18 years ago. I did Invisalign on my mom, and I can remember, how it was then. And it has come such a long way with the attachments and the research and development that has gone in there. So for us in our hands, it works well. I don't know where these other aligners, I don't know where it's going to fit in. Like you said, the patents are coming off. Even Henry Schein, I didn't mention them earlier, but they've got their own, they're coming into the aligner space. So I think it really just depends on, what kind of technology is behind the plastic, what kind of virtual setups are these companies using. And I think we're going to continue to see a lot of competitiveness in the marketplace in the clear aligners.
Yeah, because Henry Schein is huge. Stan Bergman, I think he's made 60 mergers and acquisitions in his tenure as the president and CEO of Henry Schein. So what he does with his, what is it, the SLXTM clear aligner system?
Yes.
But it sounds like you're saying what I'm hearing from so many orthodontists is that the Invisalign technology of the tray is still superior to the competition.
Again, without using it, I haven't used any of the other aligners out there. I wouldn't be able to comment on that, but I do know what they put into it, and I do know what it used to be. I mean, I can remember back in 2006 when I first set up, I was doing, 1 to 2 Invisalign cases a year. And then it just slowly got more and more because I got more and more comfortable on the types of malocclusions that I could treat with Invisalign.
Yeah. These, podcasters tend to be young. They're all under 30. Send me an email, howard@dentaltown.com. Tell me who you are, where you live, or make a comment on the YouTube channel. On YouTube, we're youtube.com/Dentaltown Magazine. Come out of school with about $290,000 of student loans. So when they go to buy something, a piece of technology, they're really looking at it. And you said something very interesting where you use the 3-shape scanner, yet you love Align Technology and Invisalign, and Align Technology owns Invisalign and iTero scanner. And there's been some disputes between iTero and 3Shape, but why do you use the 3Shape scanner and not the iTero scanner if you're an Invisalign provider?
Well, I use 3Shape software. Now, I do use the iTero scanner, so I have the elements. We have two elements. We have 2 elements from the iTero that we use to scan, but our software in our lab is actually 3Shape software that we use to manipulate the teeth. Let's say we need to close a space we left a space between number 2 and 3. So what we'll do is we use our 3Shape software to mesialize number 2 to virtually close that space. That way, when we deliver that retainer, it's a little tight to the patient, but it closes the space. But the only scanner I've ever had is iTero. I've never tried any of the other scanners.
So do you print out that tray after you use the iTero scanner with the 3Shape software? What's the name of the 3Shape software for clear aligners?
It's just our software that we use digitally in the lab. So we print that model on our 3D printer. So
you print the model?
Yes, sir.
But
and then we make a clear retainer on top of that, or 2 or 3.
You make the retainer?
Yes, sir.
With 3D printing?
Yes, sir.
And what machine are you?
No. The 3D model is printed, so we have the mold of the teeth, and then we take our BioStar, our Mini Star from Great Lakes, and we vacuum form the retainer on top of the 3D model. Yeah, we don't use a suck down machine. We use a complete, vacuum model from Great Lakes. It's called a BioStar. I mean, I love those things.
Huh? And and where's Great Lakes at?
Where's the company?
Yeah.
Not totally sure.
Not totally sure.
I'm guessing up there near one of the lakes in the Midwest.
So what percent of your ortho are you doing today is old school bracket versus new school clear aligner? Are you about 80-20, 80% bracket, 20% clear aligner?
Well, the interesting thing is we track what we're doing with software. We look at our stats every night, how many new patients are calling our office, how many exams we are doing that are kids, how many exams that we're doing that are adults. And the adult part of our practice is definitely growing. And what we're seeing is the fixed appliances part of our practice is staying about steady. So it means, if we take somebody out of braces in 18, 20 months, we're replenishing that pool pretty well. But the adult part of our practice, people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, it is growing astronomically. And so I would say that the percentage of our practice is fixed. Fixed treatment is about 75%, and aligners is about 25%.
So if you're 75% fixed and 25% clear aligner, what's the difference between someone getting fixed? What are the most correlating variables on why to fix versus removal? Is it age? Is it what is it?
I still look at adults and I try to get them into clear aligners. So when I look at an adult and they've got gold crowns, they've got zirconia crowns, they've got implants, they have bridges, they have heavy restorative work, I'm automatically looking at them thinking, I would love to have this patient, if I can, in clear aligners. And I look at the patient and I say, well, if I can treat you with a clear aligner or fixed appliances, and at the end, I don't know the difference between what I've treated you with, then I'm willing to take that chance. But if I know there's going to be a difference between one option or the other, I'll try to steer that patient into that option. With adults, Howard, with a deep bite, I say that they have a deep bite, and you put fixed appliances on their mandibular arch, and they're calling you every other week with the bracket off and things like that. With clear aligners, you don't have to worry about repairs. I mean, you deliver that mandibular clear aligner and they're biting plastic on plastic, and you don't have to worry about that. That's the nice thing about treating adults with a clear aligner.
I think that my book, which has nothing to do with dentistry, just business, uncomplicated business, you only manage 3 things: people, time, and money. I love the fact that you just said you look at your numbers every night. I mean, dentists, they love their art, but gosh, so many of them just hate the whole business side of it. Tell them again what numbers you said you looked at. You said how many new patients calling, how many new patient child exams, how many new patient adult exams, or what are your basic numbers that you're monitoring on people, time, and money? Money being the numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. What I use is a product called Gauge, and I'm not affiliated with Gauge whatsoever, but I've been using Gauge when it was Orthometrics. So when it first came out, it was a company called Orthometrics, and now it's called Gauge. And I log into Gauge. What it does is it pulls information from my server every night. And every night at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time for me, Gauge populates all my data. And what I do is I go to the summary tab and I look at production. So I look at net production. I don't look at gross. I look at net production for the day, and it gives me a relative index at how I'm doing for the month. So on April 1st, when I look tonight, I'll look at my net production, and it's comparing to what I did last year, meaning April of 2018. So it's giving me, I may be down 20%, and that just means April 1st last year I had a really good April 1st. So it's giving me a relative number. So I look at net production, I look at net collection, and then I look at patients, 30, 60, 90. I look at insurance, 30, 60, 90. Then I look at new patient phone calls. I look at my new patient exams that I did that day, adults, kids. And I look at my observation, my recall kids, because we don't do a lot of phase 1 in our office. We do a lot of recall. So if we see those 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds, we're putting them on recall. We don't do a lot of phase 1. Our phase 1 rate's about 5%. So I look at my recall pool, how many I've got on there, what we're doing with the recall pool. And then finally, one of the most important statistics that I look at is what I would call overestimated completion date. That's people, Howard, that I said would be out of braces in 18 months, and they're not for whatever reason. So if I've told you 12 months and you're an adult and you're 14 months in treatment, I want to know why. I want to flag those people. So I want to look at my percentage of my overall practice, how many are overestimated completion date. So that's really what I'm looking at. Everything I told you right there I log in at 9 o'clock, 9:15. That right there takes me about 2 to 3 minutes to look at. So Howard, I mean, looking at my numbers every night, it's a quick snapshot of what the office did that day. It's not like it's taking me 10, 15 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes tops.
Well, you and I have something so much in common, besides good looks and hair. You got that one covered. You beat me on that one. But I got out of school May 11. I had my office open September 21st. You were building your office while you were finishing dental school, walked into it. What do you think makes an entrepreneur like you, who just happened to be a doctor of orthodontics, why do you think you just did it? While so many of the millennials, they come out of school and they job hop all these associates, and they have to have 5 jobs in 5 years before they're so miserable that the only reason they open up their own practice is just because they're sick of the alternative. It's kind of like democracy. It's the worst system in the world, except for the alternative, a dictatorship. I mean, why do you think you just did it, and why everybody else walks around the pool dipping their toe in the water for 5 years?
That's a great question. I get that question a lot, Howard. There was no other option for me. In Cary, North Carolina, it's an extremely competitive area. It was competitive back in 2005. So my family had relocated down here, and I knew that's where I wanted to be. I was just married at the time, and we had 1 daughter of our 3. So I was looking at other areas, but I kind of knew Cary was where I was going to end up. And I talked to every orthodontist, and people, of course, said, it's competitive. You may want to consider other places. And, I listened to all that. And at the end of the day, I just decided to go ahead and, set up my own shop. It's what I've wanted to do ever since I was in an orthodontic school. And I think it really, if I could boil it down, it boils down to my father's business. He was a family independent pharmacy. It's still a family independent pharmacy in West Virginia. So I grew up in Virginia. There was 1 stoplight for my dad to go to work in West Virginia. It's about a 10-minute commute. And he still has his pharmacy there. It's still running. It's still successful. But me and my 2 sisters and my mom and dad, we worked in that pharmacy year round. So we got quite a bit of snow in Virginia. And when school was called off, my dad was going into pharmacy, and guess who was going with him? The kids. We were in there filling up the pop machine. I was doing inventory. I was sweeping the floors. I would take all the deodorants off of the shelf, dust that shelf, put all the deodorants back on there. Same thing with the shampoos, toothpaste. I mean, we've all been in these drugstores. I mean, that was all done by our family. And it was just that work ethic that my dad and mom instilled in me. And that came down from their parents. I mean, my dad went to Wake Forest, and his dad made him work in the coal mines to help pay for Wake Forest. And, so it's that, and it's humility. I try to look through everything through a biblical lens on my approach to life. And one of the things that I really try to come to work with is this sense of humility. There's no job beneath me in the office with our 21, 22 team members. I will clean the bathroom. I'll do whatever it needs to take. And I'm not a dictator. And I like to just show people that I'm willing to do any task. And even today, I'm a student and I'm learning. And I tell people, even though they may be trying to learn from me, I'm trying to learn from them. I'm trying to learn as much as I can. And I think we need more humility and just those kind of features in today's world. And if you're able to come to the table with those kinds of qualities, I think the people can be more successful. So that's just some of the things that's helped me.
Well, it's interesting because your dad's industry was completely taken over by DSOs. I mean, Walgreens and CVC, it was a slaughter. And your industry, when I was in school, you probably you don't remember any of this. I don't know how old you, but Orthodontic Centers of America made an attempt at this.
Yeah.
With a big line of credit and tried to roll up all the orthodontists, and it failed. It was the only one that made it to the New York Stock Exchange, and it failed miserably. Why do you think Orthodontic Centers of America failed miserably, yet your dad's industry, a pharmacy, it did not?
Well, that's a great question. And I can remember when Walmart came to Bluefield, Virginia. So there's not a Walmart in Bluefield, West Virginia. Walmart came and built right on the state line. It was halfway between my home and our family drugstore. And my dad was so stressed out when Walmart came because he was saying, hey, this is going to be it. You know, the family business that he got from his parents, his mom and his father and his uncle were all pharmacists. So it had been a family business for a while. But, you know, Walmart came, and what happened to my dad? He grew. And, you know, people wanted that customer service. You know, people were able to come to my dad, and a lot of people in our area were on multiple medications, and my dad would potentially find an interference between one drug to another, and my dad would call up the doctor and just add that extra layer or that extra customer service. So he actually came out of the Walmart area growing in his pharmacy. And you're right. When I just got out of residency, orthodontics, OCA, Orthodontic Centers of America, they were a hot topic, and it was kind of at the end. But a lot of people had jumped on and sold their practices to Orthodontic Centers of America during that time. But obviously, it was something that came and went. But at the end of the day, whether dentistry or endodontics, oral surgery, orthodontics, we have to be customer facing. We're customer service oriented. You know, yes, we provide a product, but if we're not going to create raving fans and raving patients and do everything we can to not only meet the patient's expectations, but exceed them, we're not going to be successful.
Well, you know, they Orthodontic Centers of America, it went public in 1994. How old were you in 1994?
I was 20.
Oh, so were you, well, I don't know if you're 20, if you're paying attention to that, but, you know, they had 2,000 employees. They had sales of $226 million on the New York Stock Exchange as OCA for Orthodontic Centers of America. Gasper Lazar was amazing. But why do you think it failed? Why do you think, you're an orthodontist, why do you think they failed?
I don't really know. You know, in 1994, I was at Virginia Tech. I didn't even know I wanted to be an orthodontist. I was at Virginia Tech and totally oblivious to OCA. So I don't really know why. I don't know what their business model was. You know, we've got a lot of that going on now. We've got a bunch of bigger groups in America that are coming together and that are doing you know, some of those similar type things, and they're doing it you know, differently. So, you know, it's not something that's been a one and done. I mean, it's a repetitive cycle in our profession where, you know, even these corporate dental practices, you know, North Carolina is one state where we don't have a lot of corporate dentistry, but, you know, you got these corporate dental offices that are now bringing in orthodontists, they're bringing in oral surgeons, they're bringing in periodontists, endodontists, they're bringing everything in-house. So I think everything's cyclical, and we're certainly we're dealing with these types of things again, even though Orthodontic Centers of America, and there may even be a couple of those practices still remaining. I'm not sure.
Right. So going to Fixed, I noticed you're a big, huge Damon fan. Why? Talk about why you're a Damon Orthodontics fan.
Yeah, that's a great question. When I was trained from Peter Nahn at West Virginia, we were heavily Larry Andrews, and Larry Andrews was a great pioneer of the straight wire appliance back in the 70s. And when I was trained from Dr. Nahn and Dr. Tim Tremont, and Tim Tremont's now on the program director at MUSC, the Medical University of South Carolina. And we were trained with the 6 elements of optimal occlusion. So canine guidance, anterior coupling. So the way I was trained was with a twin bracket. And when I came out, I was twin traditional orthodontics. And Damon was around, and we just couldn't, we did not do Damon when I was in residency. So when the Ormco folks would come into the office, They didn't even try to sell me on Damon, passive self-ligation. And I developed a great relationship with one of our earlier reps, who's now a Hugh Freedy. His name's Dale Herman, and Dale Herman came into my office for literally 3 years. And he didn't try to sell me anything. He developed a relationship with me, and he knew I was an avid reader and things like that. And eventually he got me to try Damon brackets, and I couldn't believe that I was putting those on teeth, because all I knew was twin and, you know, Andrew Dawson and Larry Andrews and, you know, canine disclusion and all that. But lo and behold, I put those on, and I started with, you know, 1 case, 10 cases, 50, and I would document them with photographs. And I was using a lot of expanders at the time in conjunction with fixed appliances. And I just saw some differences with passive self-ligation that I really, really loved. And, you know, Howard, now I practice 13 years into private practice. I'm not counting my residency of 3 years, but in 13 years of private practice, I'm practicing orthodontics totally different than when I was trained. And I always tell people, 13 years from now, I'll tell my patients this, 13 years from now, if I'm practicing the same way that I do today, shame on me. So if I'm not learning and getting better and learning better techniques, for example, we put early elastics on every single patient. So we put 2-ounce rubber bands the day they get braces. And the way I was trained was to wait until you're leveled and aligned and start elastics like 12 months into treatment. And we used big old 6-ounce rubber bands, 6 ounces. And they were 3/16 inch. I mean, these things were very tough rubber bands, very tight. And now what we're doing is we're trying to achieve class 1 on 2-ounce rubber bands. It's like featherweights.
So Damon is a product which is owned by Ormco, which is owned by Cavo Kerr, which is owned by Danaher. Am I following this correctly?
You got it right, I think. So there's a lot on there, but yes.
So does Ormco have a clear aligner too?
Yes.
And what's that called then?
Spark.
They called Spark. And are you a big fan of Spark? Do you think that's going somewhere?
Well, they've just come out of the clinical trials with that, and we were not on the clinical trials with that product. But we will be trying that product out for sure. And I don't know yet because we haven't actually used it yet.
It says okay. So their aligners on Ormco website are Insignia Clear Guide Express Simplify 5. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I think that's more the Insignia product. Insignia is more of a indirect bonding. So Insignia is where they custom fabricate fixed appliances.
Okay, for the seating.
Yes,
but I don't see their clear aligner on the Ormco website. That'll be interesting to see how that's going. I wanna. This is Dentistry Uncensored, so I want to hit you with some hard questions. I hope this one doesn't hack you off. But there's a lot of Dawson orthodontist people that are really big into occlusion, and I know occlusion is the most controversial part of all of dentistry. I mean, you get 5 occlusion experts in the room, and none of them are going to agree on anything. But a lot of them always throw orthodontists under a bridge, and they say, well, you know, the orthodontist, he blows out the curve of Spee, the curve of Wilson. They don't, you know, when I get these patients back, their occlusion is blah. Is that a fair complaint by occlusion? And again, a lot of the occlusion people are fanatics. I agree with that. So, but what's your thoughts on orthodontics and occlusion and all the Dawson CR versus neurolingual and all that stuff? Because when I'm talking to the kids in school, occlusion is they're more troubled and not understanding occlusion more than they are in, you know, basic bonding, fillings, x-rays. So talk all things occlusion and ortho. See what I do is I rant so long, there's got to be one good question in there somewhere that you'll take and run with.
That's a great question. And, you know, occlusion in our office is extremely important. Now, I would put it up there with facial-driven treatment planning. So what we try to do is treat to the face and make sure that the smile aesthetics are going to be great. but we cannot compromise the occlusion unless the patient is aware of it. So a lot of what you just talked about earlier, where, you're blowing out the curve of, curve of Spee and the curve of Wilson and things like that. I think the biggest disconnect is between dentist and orthodontist is the communication. So if I've got a skeletal class 2, because that's generally what we deal with in orthodontics and in dentistry is class 2 patients, mandibular deficient, they've got overjet. We're not dealing with class 3s. That's a very smaller part of our practice. So we're dealing with class 2s. And those class 2s can come in where we can do nice camouflage treatment, what I would call camouflage. And camouflage could be by leveling the lower curve of Spee and gaining a great occlusion. But for when I'm treating an adolescent, what we do is Dr. Baker and I have a patient care coordinator. And what we try to do is we have an iPad with an iPencil, and we're on Google Suite here in the office. So we don't do any of these types of earpieces where we're talking into these earpieces. We use Google Suite. And, we have a lot of chairs in our office, and we have 21 people working in this office. But we will Google Suite the patient care coordinator, and I'll say, hey, we need to send a progress report to patient X. So, and that's 4 months into treatment, Howard. So Dr. Baker and I will get a share file report, and that's HIPAA compliant. And we go in there with the iPencil, and we actually write the dentist a note with our iPencil 4 months into treatment. Hey, we're struggling here. Your patient's not keeping their teeth clean. They're not wearing their elastics. That way, the communication is very upfront in the beginning. I always tell parents, I don't want to tell you about a problem 16 months in. What's been going on from months 0 to 16? Why are we not achieving an optimal result? So I like to let our dentist in on that situation. The earlier, the better. And I like to hit them 1 or 2 times during treatment that we may be finishing with a compromised result. Because I always tell people we do photos the day of deband because I want people to see what kind of job we did. And, Dr. Baker and I talk about Dawson. We do central occlusion. So central occlusion for us is first tooth contact. So we're doing central occlusion, and we measure any slide to MI in our exams. And every patient we seat, we check central occlusion on. What's coming together when we do bimanual manipulation. And we'll do some enameloplasty, equilibration. But I think if we're not getting canine guidance, we report whether or not we're getting canine guidance and anterior disclusion on our post-treatment reports. So for us, right up there with facial-driven treatment planning, occlusion is key. I mean, if I can't interdigitate the teeth, and I always call it the zipper effect. When I'm doing a new patient consult, and it's on our big screen in the new patient room, and I talk about their teeth being able to zipper together. That's where, number 6 has to go right here between number 27 and 28. And I'll point on the screen where that tooth has to go. And so for us, I can't comment on the rest, but for us, we're trying our best to do the best we can with occlusion. And when we can't get there, that, because everybody's going to have that certain percentage of patients that either has just such a severe skeletal class 2 that you have to finish them end on class 2 because you didn't want to extract premolars just to gain a good occlusion. Because sometimes I'm against extracting number 5 and 12 just to retract everything when there's no crowding, just to get them in a more quote unquote appropriate occlusion. I'll educate that patient, hey, I'm going to finish you class 2, and here's the reasons why. But a class 2 canine, let's face it, Howard, that's great canine disclusion. I mean, if you've got a class 2 canine end on and you have them go into excursive movements, you have absolutely hardly any, non-working interferences.
Do you think it's way too much of an oversimplification to say that dentists treat 3 diseases, occlusion, caries, and perio?
Do I think it's
some people always say that, in their lecture, these are the 3 diseases that dentistry treats: occlusion, caries, and perio. And I was wondering, do you think that's true, false, oversimplified? I mean, Einstein said make it simple enough.
I think that I get where you're coming at now. I think that's oversimplified. I think the dentist has a very tough job. It's kind of like my general physician. He's got to know everything head to toe. And, I think the dentist, they've got to deal with acute and chronic problems. They have to deal with pathology. What about that little irritation fibroma on the lip? What about that little leukoplakia spot, up there near the second molar? Is it, the parotid? So I think caries, occlusion, and perio, it goes well beyond that for a general practitioner. I think their runway is so broad, and I mean, my hat's off to them. I always tell people I'm too ADD. I had to go in and tunnel my vision to orthodontics because I can only deal with one thing. I did dentistry for 4 years, and I would be reading about root canals. I'd be reading about, Atrodox, all these different supplements that I could do. And my head was spinning, and because I wanted to do it all well. And I was like, well, orthodontics is where I need to be.
Yeah, and I think that, 1900, there were no specialties. And by 2000, there was 58 with the MDs and 9 for general dentist. And I think when these kids come out and want to be a super dentist and they want to do implants and ortho and everything, I keep telling them, we're not going to go back 120 years to 1900 where the doctor delivered your baby and fix your eyes, ears, nose, and throat. I mean, I think guys like you are luckier because you can go really, really deep on one thing. And when I see successful dental offices doing any type of specialty work, it's like their main thing. They're not really into specialty work in all 10 specialties. But you cannot go deep in everything. In fact, this will blow your mind. I own a magazine, Dental Town magazine, Ortho Town magazine. There's 40,000 magazines that go to doctors. Now, are you going to read 40,000 magazines each month to stay on top of? And look at implants. Okay, you learn implants. Do you understand bone grafting? What about sinus lifts? What about all-on-fours? I mean, it's never ending. But I want to ask one more question on the occlusion because it's Dentistry Uncensored and it's controversial. Her succinct decision is, I'm out of school. I've been practicing a couple years. I want to learn more on occlusion, but it seems like there's that Dawson CR camp and that Bill Dickerson LVI neuromuscular occlusion, and she just doesn't want to. She can't take everything. I say take them all over your 40-year career, but would you guide her right towards Dawson CR or left towards neuromuscular?
For me, I'm going more the Spear Dawson Pankey route. I'm not familiar too much with the LVI route. And, we have some people in our area that subscribe to the LVI route. But I would say here in Cary, North Carolina, most of our pediatric dentists and general dentists and prosthodontists, we all speak the same language of Dawson, Pankey, Spear. I mean, look at Spear. Look at that study club. That is just grown leaps and bounds. And when you go in there, you've got multidisciplinary people in there. And when I can go in there, we can all talk the same language. Now, I wouldn't be able to go in there and talk the LVI language because I don't know it. So I would, if I was training a dental student and somebody was coming to me, I'd say, hey, Dawson, Pankey, Spear, these are tried and true. And this is where you should start with occlusion. But now remember what I said before. Sometimes I think orthodontists can, if we're doing a treatment plan just to get the occlusion, what are we doing to the joints? So let's say I'm taking out premolars on the maxillary arch and I'm retracting 6 to 11. What am I doing to the mandibular arch? Am I over impinging it on to the disc and things like that? So I think we've got to know where occlusion is. We need to know where our baseline is, but we've got to be able to know what's best for each individual patient.
Yeah, you said you were talking about Spear, Dawson, Pankey. You forgot my favorite two. One's right next to you, Ross Nash, and then Coyce in Seattle. You're pretty close to Ross Nash, aren't you? He's in Huntersville.
He's right outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. Yeah, that's about two. It's about 2.5 hours away from me.
So
Nice little train ride.
do you like his occlusion training?
I've never done the Ross Nash. I've done more of the Panky Dawson.
I like
So
to
I've never.
mostly support the bald beauties in dentistry, and Ross Nash has a gorgeous bald head. So I'm gonna say it. And I love Quace. He is God. What a great guy Quace is. He is so amazing. My favorite Quace joke is he's 100% Greek. Remember that big fat Greek wedding?
Oh yeah.
I always tell him that Quace's secret is he sprays all of his crowns with Windex before he seats them. You remember that Windex scene?
Oh yeah, and the Greek wedding movie. Yeah, and I love reading. Coyce is relatively, that's a little bit newer on the scene, and the material that come out of there, I love reading about that.
Yeah, he is, and yeah, just an amazing man. So let's switch subjects completely different. Let's go to business. You're a very successful businessman. Talk about what makes it, establishing your purpose, your brand, your differentiation, your top of the mind awareness, brand strategy. Talk about the business of orthodontics.
Absolutely, and one must consider any field of dentistry as a business. I always tell people, you've got to be the CEO of your organization. Nobody's going to run a practice like you are. So if people aren't willing to dive in and deal with the hard decisions, they may pay for it in the long run. But one of my big things when I set up in 2006 was to really put money back into the community. So I started sponsoring all these swim teams. Any swim team that came in, I would sponsor them. And then the schools came in. And I guess what I was thinking, Howard, is that everybody was doing the same thing I was, but they weren't. But, here I was in my little hole, and I just assumed everybody else was doing this. And, come to think about it, they weren't. And, that's what really got the ball rolling for us. And I love to talk about TOMA, top of mind awareness. Whether or not a parent is at a swim meet or maybe they're at a school where we're giving away a set of braces or maybe two sets of braces to the school silent auction, and people are actually bidding on our brackets, on our braces to win free orthodontic treatment. So maybe they're there, or maybe they're on the closed Facebook group. We've got Facebook groups here that are closed with moms, and maybe they're mentioning about orthodontics, and, I want to get an opinion on orthodontics. So top of mind awareness just means for us, when somebody mentions teeth or braces or straightening or Invisalign, we want them to think of our practice first, or at least think of our practice. So that's been huge for us to go into the community and really support our community, and then let the community come to us. And we've actually taken it a step further in the last 2 years, not only give money into the community, but we're actually active in the community. So we're participating in events most every weekend. I would say 2 weekends a month, we're participating in some community event where our staff actually goes to those events.
Now I know my homies. I know my homies. The first thing they're gonna say is, "Well, do you have to pay him to go to these events?"
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so obvious. It's so obvious, but it's the most common question.
Oh yeah, we pay. We do a staff trip every year. This year we're going to Nashville, so we're taking our whole team to Nashville. We'll pay for them to obviously go there, but while they're on the plane, they get paid because it's a working hours. So if we're going to fly Wednesday afternoon, they're on the clock. So not only are we paying for their plane ticket to get to Nashville, but we're paying for them to sit on the plane. And it's all spelled out in our leadership documents and our employee handbooks and employee manuals. I mean, everyone knows where we are because we have team meetings every quarter, and we spell this stuff out to our team so they know what to expect.
Marketing is everything, according to Fred Joyle. And when you talk about top of mind awareness, or TOMA, TOMA, top of mind awareness, is that mostly social media? I mean, is that something you're doing on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn, or is it direct mail, or is it Instagram? What is that a marketing concept more? And how would you break up your marketing between social media, print, events?
Absolutely. Dr. Baker and I we're not huge on social media. So social media has got such a small presence in our practice. And those guys out there that are growing their practices, guys and girls that are growing their practices on social media. And that's not where Dr. Baker and I are. And we're not into direct mail either. We don't mail things to people's homes. We don't give money off for braces. What we do is we focus on the patient in here. So not only are we going out to the schools and all the events in town, but we focus on our branding and our vision and our strategy once the new patient's here. So we focus on the new patient experience. And we do a terrible job of asking for Google reviews. You can tell the people that ask for Google reviews and they start at 0 and they get a 200 and they've only been open for a couple of months. So we've been open for 13 years and I don't even know how many Google reviews we have. I think it's 100 and some. I don't even know the number, but we do a bad job of asking for Google reviews. But people come into our practice, and I think one thing that sets us apart is we could be a second or third opinion, and we're not offering treatment for that patient. They may be a 12-year-old boy, and they may have most of their teeth in, but 18 and 31 still aren't all the way in. And we're looking at the parent, and we're like, your son's 12 years old. Why don't you wait another year? What's the hurry? Why get braces on right now? And that's done really well. I mean, and that's just our ethical, honest opinion, and that's the way, I'm fortunate to have a partner that thinks the same way I do. And that's generally done really well for us. Some people want the braces on now and they'll get another orthodontist and they'll get braces on at that point.
Another thing. Go ahead.
Well, the other thing I would say, Howard, there is a lot of business that goes into everything. Another thing Dr. Baker and I do not do is we don't do what they call same-day starts. So, when a patient comes in here and they want braces, we reappoint them. So we want them to go home and think it over and make sure that this is where they want to be and that they actually have to come back into our office and at a later time after records are gathered and get braces on.
Sam Walton obviously built the largest distribution center in the world. It's the largest employer in America. And one of his key things that he said in his autobiography was that everybody was doing games with like a Labor Day sale and a 4th of July sale. You buy one today, get another one free. He said, that it's all noise. And he pioneered everyday savings at Walmart. And he wasn't going to play the games because the promotions cost money. And the more games that you played like that actually makes your costs go up. And the secret to lower prices is lower costs. And I see that same thing in dentistry where everybody's talking about the new patient experience. Well, that's got to be a gimmick compared to everyday customer experience. So do you find yourself focusing your internal culture with staff and team building on the new patient experience or the everyday, every customer experience?
We do both. So we focus on the patients every day. So we do things every day in this practice where we will pick out patients and we'll write them handwritten notes. We'll engage with those patients with our reward hub, our practice genius, where we'll reward them for hygiene, wearing elastics. So we're focusing not only on the new patient, but those patients in treatment. I mean, those are just as important, if not more, to satisfy the people that are in treatment. Because, if you've got somebody that's unhappy with your services, once they, an orthodontist it's a funny place to be because they're seeing us every couple of months for a couple of years. So they come in here, 12 times or so or even more. And if you make them mad at any one of those visits, they'll tell 10 people. But if they're extremely happy, they may tell one, maybe. But, I do think you do need to look at all those things you just mentioned because we have a coffee bar. We do make cookies. We've got a flavored water machine. And people come in here and they may think, wow, Dr. Baker has a lot of bells and whistles. My money's going to pay for this. But we actually keep our overhead very well in check. So we do have those things. Now, we're not doing those prizes you talked about every single month. But we do have that little extra oomph when you come in here. It doesn't feel like a regular orthodontic practice. But I would say we're focusing on the new patient experience and the overall patient experience in general.
So you said you dropped a couple names. You said Reward Hub. Is that patientsrewardshub.com, which is owned by Practice Genius?
Yes. We use that system. It's worked out really well for us. We track what our team members do. So we track the percentage. So if we have a team member that's just not doing it at all, they're not engaging with their patients. Let's say we have a team member that just wants to get Howard out of the chair and he wants to get somebody else in there. And he may want to, he or she may want to finish Howard's appointment 5 minutes early so they can go into the break room and get on Facebook. So we're looking at those things. We're looking at how engaged they are with our patients. So we're looking at those reports. Dr. Baker and I look at those every month. What percentage of our assistants are using Practice Genius? Because that goes into what you just said. It goes into the patient experience.
So Practice Genius powers the Patient Rewards Hub, an engagement marketing suite that features reward, kids clubs, social media reviews, and contest engagement, all rolled into one easy application. How long have you been on that?
Oh, gosh. Probably 8 years.
And you like that?
I love it. You just have to use it right.
And
nothing's... a lot of how people are in this profession, Howard. People buy things and it sits on the shelf. We buy that new tool. Dentist, orthodontist. The orthodontists especially. We love new things and we love new products. But a lot of times we go into it and we dive off the deep end and we don't really understand that product or that tool and how we're going to implement it in our practice. So it's like anything else. You have to work on it. We work in our practice, but we work on our practice. So you can't just work in your office 8 to 5 every day and go home. You have to work on your practice as well.
Huh, and who's the CEO? Who's the head dog in charge of that place?
I have no idea.
No idea. I love your business side of it. A lot of dentists start playing with Invisalign, and then they go to their local small town study club. And they're like, oh, I don't want to sit by Dr. Bo. He might find out I'm doing Invisalign and he won't love me anymore. What do you think of other people in Cary, North Carolina, general dentists doing clear aligner therapy? Are they friend or foe?
They're a friend. And Dr. Baker and I, if you have anybody that's listening, anybody that's closely associated with us knows when we're going out to lunch, we're encouraging people to do those Invisalign Expresses. That the number 23 and number 26 that are rotated in, and that patient wants to get clear aligner treatment. We're absolutely fine with the dentist, and we'll help the dentist out if they need any help. We're not here to shun and turn anybody away. If somebody wants our help, whether or not that be another colleague, orthodontist, or a colleague that's a dentist, so we certainly encourage it. And what we like to do is we like to just teach people what maybe what they can handle and what they can do. And people have different skill sets. So we have dentists that tackle, complex Invisalign cases, and we have other people that stay more in that express, just simple alignment. I think as long as we're doing proper communication and proper informed consent and record taking, I think it's absolutely fine.
You were the past president of the North Carolina Association of Orthodontists, and we had another guest that was too, David Paquette. You say it, Paquette?
Oh, yeah.
David Paquette, who, with his bald head, would you say he's the most handsome orthodontist in all of America?
Well, with bald-headed, he's one of the most handsome, orthodontists for sure. And he does his head very well. I know you like Dave.
He is a cool dude, man. He is just so darn cool. I podcast presidents of founders and CEOs of large DSOs. They've all said on my show transparently, well, we go to certain states, but we avoid other states because of legislation or laws or whatever. Does the North Carolina Dental Orthodontic Association that you and David were past presidents of, do you guys think that the future needs more reining in some of these orthodontic DSOs, like say Smiles Direct Club?
That's a tough question. When I rolled off the orthodontic board, that was 3 years ago. And Smile Direct Club was not even, as far as I can tell, it wasn't even around. So I think it's to each individual state. And I can't really comment on, those states where there's large DSOs, because I know people that are involved with individual DSOs that do great work, and their model is actually really well. So I think it just depends on the state and how that state's run. For North Carolina, we had our own dental board for a long time. Back in 2005, when I took the dental board, we had to take the North Carolina Dental Board. Since then, the dental board, I think, networked with CETA. And so you can take multiple boards and become licensed in North Carolina. When I came through, if you did not take the North Carolina Dental Board, it was like Florida. If you did not take their dental board, you couldn't take CERTA or NERB or anything like that and practice in North Carolina. But now it is a little bit more friendly. And they do have that reciprocity rule now where if you practice, I think 5 years in another state, you can come into North Carolina. So we're definitely seeing a lot more influx of people coming into the larger cities like Raleigh, where we're associated with, and Charlotte.
So my final question, I know you're a very busy man, and it was such an honor that you came on the show, and I know you got patients scheduled. Last question. She's a general dentist. She's working as an associate. She wants to learn more ortho. Where would you advise her to learn ortho as a general dentist? Where can she go?
I would go on, there's two different ways. So most people that are general dentists want to go into the clear aligner space. Invisalign.com has a lot of resources that are online tutorials. So I would start there, because anytime you can learn in your own home, it's free mainly, and it's fantastic, and it's very convenient. The other thing I would do is tell her to get in touch with a local orthodontist in her area and just express her desire. Hey, I want to learn occlusion better. I want to learn about orthodontics.
But I got to stop you. You remember in dental school, and I remember at Creighton, I had 4 of the greatest friends. We all became dentists. They were just world-class personal human beings. But when you go to a dance hall on Friday night, they just sit there and they wouldn't ask anybody to dance because they were so fear of rejection. And she's so afraid she's going to drive over to your office and you're going to say, hey, you want to learn ortho? Go to ortho school, and slam the door in her face. She's too scared to ask. Talk to her.
So Invisalign, I think for the fixed, I'd be a little cautious about these. You mentioned direct mail earlier. I'm an orthodontist. I get all these direct mailers about, hey, come to this weekend course. You can learn about braces and everything like that. Oh, by the way, it's $29.99. It's $3,000. I'd tell her to, proceed with caution there. That's just my opinion. So I would search online and just do as much as I could online. I would Google it. There's a wealth of knowledge out there online with these Facebook groups and just, podcasts like these. There's tons of information you can learn for orthodontics. It's free. It's online. And I know. So that's the way I would go.
And you'd recommend going to Invisalign.com and taking their online courses?
Absolutely. Yeah. They've got tons of tutorials and webinars and all that such. They do that for orthodontists. So they do that for orthodontists and general dentists.
Was there any question you wish I asked and I was too stupid to ask it? Did I forget any question that you're thinking I wish Howard would have asked?
I think everybody needs to have, we talked about how we, develop our practice. I think everybody out there needs to have core values. I think they need to know why they're in existence. So what's their core values? I think everybody out there should have a mission statement. I think they need to have a brand vision. Brand vision is where do they want to go? Their mission statement is their reason for existence. But the brand vision is potentially where do they want their brand to go? And then I think people need to have brand promise. So I would just really encourage people to look into those things and then just value propositions and differentiators. I mean, you touched on that. So I'd really encourage people to really do research on, what makes up their internal being and really express that through their practice. People in our office, they know what makes up Todd Bovenizer. They know what makes up Chris Baker because we wear it outward every single day. I mean, and that's how we try to operate. I mean, and I go back to our early treatment philosophy. Early treatment is great. I'm not saying anything against early treatment. Those unilateral cross bites, those underbites, we're treating those every time. But we're real careful with how many people are going in braces at age 9, 10, 11 years old. I mean, they've really got to need it. That's why our phase 1 orthodontic rates, 5% last year.
Do you think your purpose, brand mission, brand promise, do you think all those core values come from your childhood as a Colonial Baptist? Is that where you picked that up?
Well, my childhood was in Virginia with my parents, and very similar, Colonial Baptist, I've been going there for 13 years. That's where Megan and I landed when we came here. That certainly helps shape who I am, today. And just, how I'm growing. How am I growing as a father? How am I growing as a husband? How am I growing as a business owner? We can't stay stagnant. But a lot of the core values, mission statement, brand vision, brand promise, it comes from my father's family independent drugstore. Goody Coons. I mean, Goody Coons is still there.
Wow. Well, hey, I know you got patience. I know you got to go. I cannot tell you what an honor it was to have you on the show. Thank you so much. And also, thank you for that article you wrote for Orthodontic magazine, Passive Ligation, Active Results by Todd Bovenizer, Orthodontic magazine, December 18. Thank you so much for all that you've done for dentistry, for orthodontics, for the North Carolina Association, for Orthodontic magazine. I just think you're one hell of a guy, and it was an honor to interview you today.
Thank you, Howard. Thank you for everything you're doing. I'm a big fan, and you mentioned earlier about the phone. I'm 44, and I'm still a computer guy. So anytime I pull up Ortho Town, I do it on the computer. So there's certain things I do on the phone, but there's other things I do on the computer. But I will tell you something. I learned, I try to learn everything that I can. That Ortho Town article I wrote, I've already learned something about that. I should have had pre and post-treatment selfs on there, cephalometric x-rays. And after I published that, and I even went through a little, a person that proofread it, I'm like, oh my gosh. If I ever write one of those again, I learned. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to put that pre and post treatment cephalometric X-ray on there. But you know what? It was a good article. Could have been better. Absolutely. Next one I write, will it be different? Absolutely.
Yeah, and I just read a deal that Reddit is like one of the fastest growing social media sites. And the interesting thing about it is 98% of Redditors never post. And people are always afraid to post because they're fear of public speaking. They're going to be wrong. No one will love them anymore. And I always thought it was the opposite. I've had a monthly column since April of 1994. And every time I say something wrong, I love it because that's what I thought. And then all my homies run to me and say, no. And so it's when you're transparent and post, you get a new editing, clean up your own information act that so many people can think wrong thoughts the rest of their life and never have them edited by their friends and loved ones. But I know you got to go. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I hope you have a rocking hot day.
Have a great day, okay?
All right.